What's up, everybody? Robbie Gould here, and I am kicking it with a former Penn State and fellow alum. And not only is she an incredible reporter, she started out in the news industry, worked her way on to being one of the sideline reporters, one of the best sideline reporters, actually, in all of sports right now. You know her for being on the sideline at the NBA for ABC coverage and Monday Night Football, where I get to see her all the time and give her a big hug. Lisa Salters, thanks for kicking it with me.
What's up, Robbie? I'll do anything for you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Obviously one of the biggest things that I'm trying to do coming out of this quarantine is I'm trying to develop a new skill. And it's going to be an honor for me to actually be on the other side of this, because usually on a Monday Night Football, or I remember sitting at the Super Bowl, you're interviewing me. So I'm pretty excited to have this opportunity.
You're trying to take my job. I know how this goes.
Definitely not.
But how this is going to go.
All right, Lisa, I want to start this off by talking about you're in Philadelphia, born and raised in the same area that Kobe Bryant was. I know you guys have a great relationship, and you guys were really close friends. Tell me what that relationship has meant to you.
Well, we didn't go to the same high school. We grew up in the same area. He went to Lower Marion, and I went to Upper Marion. So they're about, I'd say maybe 15, 20 minutes away from each other. And Kobe is a lot younger than me. So we didn't grow up like at the same time or go to high school at the same time. But I did do an E60 profile piece on Kobe. And one of the things we did, we both met back in Philly. And we went and had a cheesesteak. They shot us eating cheesesteaks and hanging out. He used to show me where he used to play, and we went and talked to one of his old high school teachers. I think it was his Spanish teacher. Kobe's passing really hit me hard because, not only was he from Philly, but then I got to know him doing that piece on him. And then I would see him, like we covered Lakers games like every weekend when they were, at their prime and winning every championship. So we got to be friends, and that doesn't happen often. Like you and I are friends. I got to be friends with him, so I would keep in contact with him in the off season. I would hit him up on holidays. We had just exchanged text this past Christmas. So that really hit me hard. It was a tough loss. He was a good friend.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like, as part of the sports, one of the things that I love the most is creating these relationships with people like yourself and other people in the locker room. And obviously you can learn a lot from people like that. And I think a lot of that starts for you back at Penn State, where both of us obviously went to Penn State. You played basketball. You and I have a very similar background. We both walked on at Penn State. Tell me what that was like, walking on. You're 5'2", and you get a chance to play Division I basketball.
I'm 5'2", 5'3" now, but I guess I grew in college. But I was fast. I was quick, and I can handle the ball. But we also had an All-American point guard on our team, Susan McConnell, who I keep in touch with too, and she's doing great things. She's coached in the WNBA. She's coached at Pitt, she's coached some of our national teams, like our junior national team. But it was great. I mean, playing in college, I don't know, like if you walked on knowing that you were going to be on the team. I did not. Like I tried out. I had to do the tryout and everything. And it was a great experience. College athletics, I tell people this all the time. College athletics is like a job, like when you're in college. So like when you get out of college and you're working a real job, not like you. So when you get out of college, you're working a real job, nothing really bothers me. I don't really feel that there's that much adversity because no one is telling me to line up and run if I do something wrong. So, it was a great experience. I still keep in touch with some of my former teammates. But I can't imagine what it would be like to be a Penn State football alum. I mean, you guys have always been king of the campus. So that just must have been, to tell people you played football at Penn State, that's a big deal.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. What was kind of unique for me is I got a chance, because it's such a nice community of athletes, we
Yeah.
all played basketball together in the off season. So I had a chance to actually go in the Bryce Jordan Center, and I'm playing with, guys that are 6'8", and they're just swatting my shot like 7 rows deep. I'm like, all right, well, thank God I'm a kicker. You started at Penn State, obviously, to do broadcasting. You had aspirations to become a news broadcaster, which you eventually did. You never really saw yourself getting into the sports side of it in the beginning. Why was the news such a draw to you as a broadcaster?
Well, it was all I knew. So, for me back then in, the 80s, you know how when you're like a sophomore or a junior or senior in high school, people are always asking you, what do you want to be when you grow up? And for me, it's like I want to be, I want to be a reporter on the news. And I didn't really see people doing sports. It was just I would see people on the news. And so there was this one. You're from Philly. Remember Lisa Thomas Laurie? Oh no, you're not from Philly. You're just from Pennsylvania. But there was a news anchor in Philadelphia. Her name was Lisa Thomas Laurie, and she was an anchor. And I was like, I think I could do that. I want to do that. So it wasn't that I didn't want to do sports. It just wasn't really on my radar. I didn't really consider it. And when you're in school for journalism, and it's still this way now, when when you're in school and you are a journalist at the network, whatever, they look down at sports journalism like it's not real, because only real journalists do news, politics, the economy, stuff like that. But sports is considered like not real journalism, and that may have been true 30 years ago. It wasn't what it is now, but that was one of the reasons why ESPN hired me, is because I'd done the OJ Simpson trial for ABC News for 2 years, like every day. That's all I did. And they knew I had trial experience. I'm not a lawyer, but they knew that I had experience covering trials. They wanted people with journalism experience to cover more than hits, runs, and errors. Someone who had journalism experience and an education on the ethics and the integrity of journalism. And because there are some ethics and a lot of integrity has to go into it. There are lines that you are never supposed to cross as a journalist, as a true journalist, which is always remain objective, never pick a side. So people ask me all the time, oh, who do you have in the Super Bowl? And I was like,
I gotta stay neutral.
I gotta stay neutral. I was like, but I can tell you that I'm pulling for people that I know. So I'm pulling for like the Andy Reid, and I'm pulling for Robbie Gould. So I want those guys to do well, but I'm neutral as far as who wins.
And that's the exact conversation we had on Thursday night in the conference center. We were talking. She's like, hey, I'll never forget it. You're like, I want to wish you all the best. Like, I hope that you win, but I also have other people that I hope that I win. I'm very neutral. And, that's what you got to do as a reporter. Has there ever been a time where that line has been difficult to kind of ask a question and or figure out which way to go in an interview?
No, I always remember to just keep it neutral. Even like Eagles games, I'm a diehard Eagles fan. But like when I'm covering the Eagles, they are just another team to me. I think some of the things that are difficult, like what's going on in our country right now with the Black Lives Matter movement, that was difficult 4 years ago when Colin Kaepernick first started to kneel and players started to protest, because I wanted to be a part, but yet I can't say that, hey, I fully support what you're doing. I can't do any of that. I have to be completely neutral. So, I remember saying to my producer for Monday Night Football, like, hey, I want to kneel too. Like, I want to show these guys I support their message. And it's like, but the journalist in me was like, you can't do that. And so I didn't then. I'm not sure what's going to happen moving forward, but I do feel like I want to be, I want to take a stand, and I want to show my support to something so important.
Yeah, it's interesting because, I've obviously been in a locker room that was with Colin Kaepernick just coming away from San Francisco, and, the conversation of, social injustice and police brutality, and going through these conversations of why it started. And it really opened up my eyes to a lot of different things. And we as a group, as a team, are now getting together and starting to have conversations for people to understand what a locker room is like, and how we communicate, and the respect that people have, and creating this conversation of message at home, and how we can help people understand what everyone is going through. And to me, like, you just want to make a change. You want to try to figure out the best way to do it. And from your opinion, how can everybody help? How can anybody get involved? And like, what are you teaching your son? And what are the conversations you're having at home that maybe I can take and instill in my kids?
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like, I don't have the answers. I know I want to do something, but you don't know what to do. The conversation that I had with my 7-year-old, I waited like 4 days, 5 days, until there were protests going down the street here just past our house in Baltimore. And I thought, all right, now I'm going to have to like tell him. And I didn't know, there's no right and there's no wrong. There's some parents who are like telling their kids from the beginning. And I just wanted him to be a kid, and to be oblivious to it all. And then my opinion changed. And I thought, I'm going to just have to tell him about what's going on in an abbreviated version, one that he can understand. And I cried all the way through the conversation. And he's just looking, he knows something is wrong because I'm crying, telling him about what has happened and what's going on in the country. So he ends up consoling me. So, I don't know if you should tell your kids or not, because it's a really hard conversation. At some point, it's kind of like the birds and the bees conversation. At some point, you're going to have to talk to them about it. But I don't know when the right time is. And I don't know, the racial injustice in our country is so systemic. It's such a part of our fabric that, so many of, us as African Americans, we just kind of like, this is how it is. Like, we've just kind of learned to roll with it. And it's only when something really outrageous happens and now something so outrageous has happened that everyone can see. People are like, wow, that really happens to you? Like, what? Like, this happened? People are telling their stories, and I'm not surprised when I hear the stories of all of these African American men telling about what has happened to them personally, being stopped by police. I'm not surprised at all. Or women talking about being, called the N-word just driving down the street by random people. None of that surprises me, and it should. I'm just so tired, and it's like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what you can do to make people love each other and accept each other for who they are. I don't know how you make people do that. You can't legislate it, that's for sure. You can try, but people are either going to love each other and accept each other for who they are, or they're not. And I don't know how you make people do that.
I love the locker room atmosphere. I think, you're talking about people from every different race, every different culture, every different religion. You're having conversations on every topic possible, right? And what's been unique is you respect everybody in the locker room for who they are, not for the skin color that they have, not for the religious background. And what's unique for me as an older player, I'm 37 years old. I'm 16 years in the National Football League, and I'm with 22-year-old kids. They could be my kids, basically. You know what I mean? And I'm learning from them, what their upbringings were and how they were raised and the conversations they're having. You never want to see anybody go through any sort of conversation of what happened and be treated the way that anybody was treated, truthfully. But at the end of the day, like, I wish people could see going inside a locker room and what that conversation is. And what's unique is you have the ability as a sideline reporter and as a reporter in these E60 pieces to really pull out the heartstrings of these conversations. Is there anything that's ever stuck out to you in any conversation you've done or had with an athlete that people would be like, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense?
I've done so many stories, profiles where, you get to spend more than just a couple of minutes on the sidelines with the guy. I spent days with Dwayne Wade and his mother. And I'll never forget that he said, you were the only one that I wanted to trust the story with. His mother had been out of his life for most of his childhood because she was in jail because of a drug addiction. And hearing him talk about his childhood, hearing him talk about things. And he said, I've never told anybody this before until now, hearing his mother tell me things that she says, I don't even think Dwayne knows this. And, that sticks out to me. Um, I mean, there's just so many, Robbie. And every time I like watch a game now, I think like, oh, I did a story. There's always like somebody on either team that I have sat down with and done like an in-depth, profile on. And so that's why I feel like that I'm in a unique position on the sidelines that ESPN doesn't even always capitalize on, because like I'm the only one out of all of the sideline reporters. I'm like going to these people's houses in the off season and just spending time with them and hearing about Shady McCoy. Shady McCoy is like a single dad. Well, I don't know if he's still single, but was the primary parent for his kid, and as a football player. And I was like, how many football players do you think that are in the league that are the primary parent for their kid? And he fought for that, and I was like, what a great story. So yeah, I love the position that I'm in. I love that you guys trust me on the sidelines and off the field with your stories. But that's what I tell everybody all the time. They're just guys like everybody else. They have their problems. They have their successes and their failures, just like all of us. And, I'm just kind of honored that they would trust me with their stories so many times.
Obviously for an athlete, trust is a big part of how we let people in, why we let people in, how the stories go, knowing that people are going to run them for the right reasons and not run them for maybe the tabloid hit or, the piece that you're trying to get the headlines and things like that. And I think something that always resonated with me is you've always been prepared for these interviews. You've always done your research. You've always come into the conversation understanding what your subject is and what they're about. What's the preparation like for you, and how do you gain the trust through preparation for these subjects?
Oh, it's a lot. It's a lot. I mean, it's, pages and pages. For a Monday night game, it's like 50 pages of your reading on both teams. It's like maybe 25 pages on each team. So, some people, it cracks me up when people think like, oh, you just show up on Sunday night and you do the game on Monday
night. I know the feeling. I'm a kicker. I just show up for a couple of kicks.
Well, that's true for you guys. You really just, that's all you do. I've seen you guys at practice, and you just like kind of kick and then play games where like if you can kick it into the bucket and stuff like that.
There's no doubt. We do a lot more than that too. Anything to keep us busy.
I know how hard you guys work. I've seen you working. But yeah, people who think you just show up. No, like once I get home on Tuesday from a Monday night game, I take Tuesday off. I try to take Tuesday off and do nothing. Although it is a travel day, I've usually traveled all morning to get home. But Wednesday, it starts all over again. You get your research packet on both teams and you start grinding. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, you go wherever you have to go. Saturday, we're at your practice. Sunday, the visiting team comes in. Monday, you do the game. Tuesday, I go home and rest. Wednesday, it starts all over again. So there's just so much preparation that goes into it. And in addition to like the research packet that you get, you kind of go online, guys, you want to dig a little deeper, and you go online and like kind of try to find out some other things about them. I keep forgetting you're with the 49ers now. To me, you're still a Bear.
I know. And I love the city of Chicago too. So it's not a love loss. That's for sure.
I understand. But I have a piece running this Father's Day on Sunday for E60 on one of your teammates. Gosh, he's not even your teammate anymore. Marquise is now with the Eagles.
He's in Philly.
Everything just changes fast.
Yeah.
But like the heartache and the heartbreak that he and his wife Morgan had to go through to become parents. I mean, it was excruciating listening to. I mean, I must have interviewed them for 5 hours on one occasion, and then went back and interviewed them again a different time, just talking about the heartbreak. I mean, I can't imagine going through what they went through, the miscarriages that they had to go through to have a child. But they were just, and we tell people right away, like, look, what this is about. This is going to be uncomfortable. It's going to hurt. It's going to bring up horrible memories. It's
kind of unique though. I think that's the perfect example of the conversation of, respecting people for who they are, what they are. Everyone has these emotions. Everyone goes through these situations and scenarios. In San Francisco, I've never been a part of a team where there's been more, I'll call it issues of tragedy, whether it be losing babies. I mean, my wife and I, we went through a situation. We've had teammates whose brothers, friends. I mean, it's been wild to see how all of that,
CJ lost it, right?
yeah, but nobody, not one guy in the locker room was like, oh my God, I'm not going to help him out. Everyone gave a call. Everyone gave a text. Everyone checked in on him all the time. Guys were asking around the locker room about him. I mean, it's because you care. You get to know the person. You get to understand what they're about, who they are, what their upbringing. Like, and to me, those conversations going back to Marquise, like it was heartbreaking to watch it as a father, but it also as a husband to know what she was going to have to go through emotionally, mentally, and how that was going to carry throughout. So I think, for me specifically, and I'm sure you can see this when you're doing the interviews, like you get it, like you understand it. Like it's hard for you to kind of keep it together when you're doing the interview or understanding what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I mean, there haven't been a lot of occasions. So I've been doing this like 32 years now, but there've been a couple of instances where we had to stop rolling tape because I couldn't pull it together. Just sometimes it's just too much. It's too overwhelming. Most of the time I'm able to keep it together until the interview is over. And, or sometimes we have to stop tape because who I'm interviewing can't pull it together. But there have been a couple times where it was just so much and so heavy. And it goes both ways. So even though I'm interviewing somebody about their horrible experience, sometimes something really horrible has happened to me and I still have to go to work and get something done. So it's like Marquise playing after his wife had a miscarriage. He still goes out and does his job. Yep. Nobody knows that he is like a wreck internally. There have been times that, the same thing has happened to me. I was going through a miscarriage while on the sidelines of a Lakers-Spurs game. It was happening at that time. I knew it was happening. I knew that the pregnancy was no longer viable. And I knew it was going to happen at some time. And it happened during a game. And people were like, why did you do the game? Why not do the game? Like, I can't just say, I'm not doing the game. So I did the game and I was in a lot of pain. As soon as the game was over, I went straight out of the arena. But we got to do our jobs.
People will probably look at your job, my job, and say, "Hey, you guys just show up and you just get to talk to fun people and have a good time." And at the end of the day, and at our core, we are human. We are people that are going to go through the same situations as everybody else. And I think something that I've always kind of leaned on is learning from those adversity moments. Your stories that you have done, the place from the FIFA to the Olympics, the OJ trial, to all the international stories. I mean, I told my wife, we were talking the other day and I was like, listen, like, I don't know when I'm going to be done playing football. When my kids are ready and, they may need me, then I'll make that decision. But we've never looked back and said, hey, remember this game or remember that? Like, I look at your career and I'm like, oh my God, the places she's gone, the things she's done, the stories she's covered. I mean, how incredible is it to look back on some of those places you've gone and memories and to be able to share that to the world, not just like, just a small area. Like, what is that feeling like pushing out a story to millions of people?
And that's the thing. You don't even really think about it while it's happening. People ask me all the time, what was the O.J. Simpson trial like? Well, back when I was doing it, it was just going to work every day, trying to do a good job every day. Like, that's the thing. I've never tried to be great. I just wanted to be good. I just wanted to be good and solid and not mess up. So it's a good feeling. Being able to, what I want to do is just tell stories the right way. Whether it's a story about an athlete who suffered a personal tragedy or an athlete who's had a great triumph. I just want to tell it the right way and strike the right tone. Remember the Kareem Hunt interview. Yep. I mean, that was tough. That was really tough. It was live. I knew everyone was watching. I knew everybody in the world was watching. And I thought, if I don't strike the right tone, I'm either going to get slaughtered for being too hard on them, or I'm going to get slaughtered for being too soft on them. So I've got to be almost perfect. And that was probably, people ask me, do you ever get nervous? I don't. I was gripping then because I had, first of all, like I was in Philly getting ready for a Monday night game. They called me at 6:00 on a Saturday night, which is normally my off nights, just kind of like hang out after we've gone to your practice, like have dinner. It was a kind of like a home game because I was close to Baltimore. So I had my kid with me. We were at Dave and Buster's playing video games. He was going to come back to the hotel. We're going to have room service, go swimming in the pool. They call me at 6:00 and say, Kareem Hunt wants to do an interview with us. And he says he wants to do it with you. Okay. In Kansas City tomorrow at 11 a.m. There's one flight that leaves Philly at 8:30. We need you to be on it. Can you do that? I'd say to my son, like, I have to go. And he goes, what about room service? And I'm like, you know what, buddy, I promise I will make it up to you. This is like in December too. It's been a long season already. And we're looking forward to this home game where I get to hang out with him and not be on the road. And, that whole plane ride, that whole night at that hotel by myself, because all my crew is in Philly preparing for, an Eagles game. And I was like, I've got to be perfect, because if I'm not perfect, I'm going to get crushed. And got through that interview. I don't know if it was perfect or not, but people focused on Kareem and not on me. So that I always feel that that's a win when people are talking about the interview and not the interviewer, what I was wearing or how I looked or anything that I sounded stupid or like that. So to me, that was one of the most stressful things that I've ever done.
Yeah, it's very much like a kicker. We have one kick in the game that makes or breaks the game, and it's kind of the same conversation.
You could have kicked 5 field goals prior. Like I felt like my entire 18-year career in sports is going to be defined by this one interview. That's not fair.
Yep.
And yet I knew that was the reality. Same for you. Like you could kick, score 15 points in the game, but if you miss the game winner, you're the GOAT.
Absolutely. I always put myself in my kids' shoes and say to myself, what advice would I have for them that would allow them to grow, or do I want to teach them as they get older? What advice would you give to your younger self?
What advice would I give to my younger self? Start a family sooner. That would be my advice. Because I waited too long. I was so into my career that I didn't really start to think about it until I was in my early 40s. Everything's great now. It's not too much for me or anything like that. But I wish I'd started earlier. Maybe I would have, adopted more than one kid. But I probably would give that advice to my younger self too. Work is going to be there. Don't forget about family.
Yeah, I love that advice. I think it's something that is true no matter what profession you're in and anything that you do. Lisa, this has been incredible. You're an unbelievable broadcaster. You're an incredible mom. You have an incredible story, and you're a very dear friend, and I can't thank you enough for kicking it with me.
Thanks, Robbie. I appreciate it. Good luck with the career aspirations in broadcast journalism. I love it.